Hey guys, how's it going? I hope this video finds you well. I'm Alex and this is the Car Creative, and today we are talking about these guys, circular polarizer filters. And we're gonna talk about what they are, how to use them when you're shooting, and how to edit them in post. So let's start by first saying, what is a circular polarizer filter? Well, this is a little filter that you screw on the front of your lens, and it cuts reflections on paint, foliage, windows, just a bunch of things. And a lot of people use it for cutting reflections out of water, those kind of things. And it's a really cool tool, but the interesting thing about them is that it kind of only cuts the image out of half the lens. So the trick is to take some exposures and twist this thing until you find the perfect reflection cut. So how we use this in car photography specifically is you spin this lens until you cut all the reflections out of the windshield or the side of the windows or the hood or the side of the car. Typically have to take multiple exposures. So set the camera up on your tripod, screw this circular polarizer filter onto the front of your lens and rotate it until it cuts the reflections out of whatever part you want it to cut out of. So you'd start, let's say, with the windshield and the hood of the car, take the photo, and then you spin the circular polarizer filter until it cuts the reflections off the side of the car, take the photo, and then you bring it back into post. You take those two pictures and you stitch them together on top, and then you just kind of paint in just the parts you want. So it's kind of like a fun technique to use. There's a little bit of technical stuff we have to learn, but I'm gonna try and make it as simple as possible so that you guys can do this with your photos. This is a really cheap one. It's a Polaroid circular polarizer filter, and I think it was 50 bucks on Amazon or something like that. So, and there's cheaper ones you can get too. But this one's worked just fine for me. I don't know what different grades there are or how fancy they get, but this is the one I use and it works fine for me. So let's go take out the Corolla and we're gonna shoot it, and I'll show you guys how to shoot it and then how to edit it. Okay guys, so we are out here in the beautiful, just outside of Calgary. I don't actually know what it's called, but I've got to make a sweet film for South Point Toyota with this Corolla, and then we're gonna find a sweet spot and I'm gonna show you how to use those polarizers. So stick around, we'll do some fun B-roll and have a good time. It's a beautiful day. Beautiful. Couldn't be better. Stoked. As you guys can see, it is absolutely beautiful out tonight. So I'm actually gonna take some video real swift and then I'll show you guys how to use that polarizer filter. Okay, so as you guys can see here, we've got a real nice sunset happening. So I'll show you guys in a second what I'm doing, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the polarizer filter. I've got my settings set here. 1/125th of a second, an aperture of 4, and an ISO of 100. I am zoomed in around 70 millimeters, around like 65, I guess. I might go to 60 just to give myself a little bit more crop room. Making sure I'm locked in focus, manual focus on the Toyota emblem. So as you turn the polarizer filter, you can see how the reflection on the car shifts. So you turn it to here, you take the photo as it's blocking off all the reflections on the windshield of the car, and then you turn it to here on the side of the car, block off all the reflections on the right side as best as possible, take the photo there as well. And then what we do in post is we take those two images together, stitch them together, brush in just the parts we want, and I'll show you on the computer back at home. So let's go do that. All right guys, welcome back to the office. This is where we make all the magic happen. We've been talking about these polarizer filters and how they take your photos with two different exposures, switching your polarizer filter, and then you can edit them in Photoshop. So I've already brought in those two photos into Lightroom, which you can see here. I've brought in my two exposures. And so you can see on my first exposure here, I was able to cut out the reflections on the window and on the hood of the car. And then on the second photo, we cut out a ton of reflections on the side panel of the car. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these two photos, we're gonna import them into Photoshop, and then we're going to just paint in the parts of the second exposure that we want to keep. So let's dive in here. So as you can see, I've got these two photos and I've already done my basic adjustments in Lightroom. So you can see that I've done some editing here. Not final editing, but most of it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to click both these photos. Then you're gonna right click on these photos and we're gonna go edit in, and not edit in Adobe Photoshop, but you want to go down to open as layers in Photoshop. And what this will do is it will open up obviously these two photos separately in Photoshop. So I've already gone ahead and done this. So we're going to click over here. Okay, so you can see that I've got two photos off to the side here. I'll just blow this up a little bit. Two photos off to the side. This is my base exposure. So what I've done is I want to use all of this photo. I think the sun looks better, and if I click on this photo here, you can see that it's the same photo, but just a different exposure on the side of the car. And the sun kind of crept away a little bit. It was going down so fast, it was crazy. Okay, so what I've done here is I've got them both here, and now I'm going to click again on both images, select them both, holding Command, clicking both, and then I'm going to go up here to edit. And what we need to do is make sure that these photos are aligned exactly the same, so that when I brush in a part of the image, I'm not, I didn't move the tripod at all when I click the shutter button. I mean, it can move from time to time, so you just always want to make sure that you go and edit, auto align those layers to make sure that they just sit perfectly on top of each other, so that when you brush in the layers you want, they just line up perfect. So again, I'm just going to double check to make sure that those look good. They look good to me. And so now what I'm going to do is you need to do what's called masking. So on this photo, we just want to take this side portion of the car. I'll just make my brush a little bigger. We want to take the side portion of the car and brush in these reflections so that it just looks smoother on the vehicle. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on that picture, and down here, this little button right here is a mask button. So we're going to click on that. It's going to add what's called a mask layer. Now what we want to do is make sure that we invert this layer so that our base layer becomes, our most important layer. And by inverting that mask, watch what it does here, is it reverts back to the base image like that. And then now we've got a black layer here that we can paint in the rest of the image that we want. So what I mean by paint in is that they've got a tool in Photoshop called the brush, and that's this guy here. So what we want to do with this brush is paint in the side. So I'll show you what I mean. So you can see the layer here is black. So if I want to paint something on top of it, you need to look over here and make sure that your paint color is currently white. So make sure that your opacity up here is 100, your flow is 100, or whatever you want it to be if you want it to do it a little easier. And then what you'll see here is I'm just going to paint here, and you'll notice that the back end of the car is going to start coming in, and it's just going to cut out some of those reflections. Just like this. So this can become a bit of a tedious process, and you can be as delicate as you want in this process, and some people take a lot of time to do it. I tend to just kind of make sure it looks good to the eye, and I am happy because most people don't really nitpick when they look at your photos. They scroll past it in 2 seconds, double tap it or they don't, And that's that, folks. So you can choose what time you'd like to take to do this. I tend to just kind of do a little quick brush. Now the reason I'm not going over the rims is because I think that the rims on the first image are a little bit brighter, so I'm going to keep those ones. And what you can see here is if I brush over the windshield, whoa, that's a bad reflection, so we don't really want to do that, so I'm just going to undo that brush stroke. We can even come across here, see how it looks on the hood, if we like that look better, or if we like the brighter look. I think I will actually paint that in, but I don't want to hit the headlights, so let's do this. There we go. I think that looks pretty sharp. And so then that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I do when I take those two layers and stitch them on top of each other. Now in Photoshop, I do quite a bit of extra work to clean up the image. I think Photoshop's a much better tool than Lightroom is to clean up your image. For example, there's this post back here that I want to get rid of, and I can maybe do another tutorial another time on how to actually get rid of those things, because it can be pretty easy, but as long as you know the tools, which can be daunting, it's not too hard. So we'll do that another time. So all you do is just save this image, and then it will save itself back into Lightroom, where you can go and do your final touch-ups, make your image look fancy, however you like it, and go from there. So typically there's a lot of extra steps that I do. I dodge and burn the photos. I make sure that the image pops in certain areas so that it really stands out from the background, but we're not going to go over that today. Today was just that tutorial on how to use these polarizer filters to stitch together two images, and then you get to decide with your creative skills how you want to make that image look. So I will show you the final product. Alright guys, so here is the final image after cleaning up the sign, adding some dodging and burning, and adding some reds and warm tones into the image to make it really where I want it to go. Let me know what you think. Hopefully you guys learned something from this and using the polarizer filter. Go get one if you guys are really interested in car photography. It's a really good tool to help kind of take you to the next level and clean up the reflections and stuff, which can be really hard to get rid of in Photoshop. And it just takes a lot of time. So this is a quick, easy way to do it. Hope it works for you. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you learned something. Feel free to like, subscribe if you want to get more content like this, and let me know if there's something you want to learn and I can help you out with. Thanks for sticking around, guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.